Exodus 12:41. So it says in the NIV, well, let me see if I can make it a little bigger. That's good. Let's see, that's good. Okay, NIV. At the end of 430 years to the very day, all the Lord's morally bankrupt morally bankrupt representation for Yahweh. All Yahweh's divisions left Egypt. Right? You can see right here in the Greek. All the division, all came out, the powers of Lord, out of Egypt. So all the powers of the Lord, or Yahweh, right? Morally bankrupt. All the powers. They're the same. The singular and the plural I'm going to show you. Well, I mean, they're a little different in terms of, well, they end up being the same. I'm going to show what I mean by that. So just hang on to that point in terms of the singular or the plural and what that represents. You can see NIV has plural. And there's a reason for that. It's plural in the Hebrew. This is Sam's favorite Bible, the New Living Translation. All the Lord's forces. Right? This word right here, we're going to focus on divisions. Forces. Hosts. I'm looking for armies, right? Because that's why NWT uses regiments. It's basically the same. This one says organized family groups. You'll see why. That's kind of what it means. It means all the people, right? All the people of Israel. The hosts. This is not talking about the heavenly hosts, right? It says very clearly. Then the King James. This King James. Which is the original King James? Oh, King James 2000. Even the very same day it came to pass, all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. Does everyone understand that hosts of the Lord here clearly refers to human beings? I don't think there's going to be any dispute if you're not clear on that yet. I'm looking for armies. Hosts of Jehovah, American Standard. Good job, American Standard, not using a perverted representation of the divine name right there. So I don't see any that say armies. Like NWT, oh, there's one. Word English Bible. The armies of Yahweh went out from the land. Young's literal, the hosts of Jehovah. Good job, Young's, right? Okay, so you get the point, right? These are the Hebrew word for, let's look at it. So you can see in the parallel linear, and you'll be able to make the comparison on your own. But visually, or just watch the video because you'll see it right here. So here's Exodus 12:41. Then the Bible Hub's parallel Hebrew. Let me see if I can make it so. Okay. It came passing in 430 years. Went out all, that's the Hebrew word for all, called the armies. Sibaot of Yahweh. It actually says, it says Yahweh in the translation, but it really says Yehwah. I'm going to say Yahweh, but that's something else a lot of people don't realize. There's often, because a lot of people think it's the vowels from Shema, but well, I'll talk about that more later. And I do in my chapter 1, JWD defended. Either way, slow point there. That's the key term, right? Armies, like NWT and a few others we read. The parallel puts armies. All the armies of Yahweh, is very important, went out from the land of Egypt. So here it uses the plural, right? All the armies. Now let's look at Joshua 5. Well, actually, let's go to, before we do that, let's go to Numbers. Numbers 1. All right, so you see that it uses the plural in Exodus 12:41 for the people leaving Egypt. all the armies of YHWH. I wonder if the parallel will be good for us here. Okay, so let's go to the regular first. I don't want it to be too awkward. I want you to get the point of the text before we go to the parallel. Okay, so let's just look at NIV. It should be fine. Numbers 1. Lord YHWH spoke to Moses in the tent of meeting in the desert of Sinai on the first day of the second month of the second year, after the Israelites came out of Egypt, right? Armies of YHWH. Pay attention, Sam. Although I know you don't. Verse 2, take a census of the whole Israelite community by their clans and families, listing every man by name, one by one. You and Aaron are to count according to their divisions all the men in Israel who are 20 years old or more and are able to serve in the army. So all the armies, plural, left Egypt, and then they were categorized by clans and families, each person by name, each man by name. They were to count the divisions of the men in Israel who can serve in the army. Now, NIV uses two terms here. We're going to see if they're the same. Divisions and the army. Let's go ahead and take a look at this in the Hebrew. This is very important. So focus. Right? You want to defeat Trini. You want to expose Sam more. It's getting kind of boring now, but actually I'm still having fun. So, and he's going to keep lying, so it's not going to stop. Okay, look. Yeah, that's verse 1, and it's verse 2 or 3 where the key parts. Take a census of all the congregation, sons of Israel, by their families, by houses, their fathers, according to the number of the names, every male individually. It's verse 3. From 20 years old and above, all who are able to go to war in Israel. The word for to war is sabah. Shall number them by their armies. See, NIV used divisions here and then used army at the end, right? So you wouldn't be able to, NWT is better. NWT almost always uses the same term unless it's very unique in its usage so that you can, without even looking at the underlying text, tell from, in most cases, if it's the same Hebrew word or Greek. And it's very good for the NWT to have done that. So, but in NIV, right, you wouldn't know that. You'd have to come here and look, and it says, number them by their armies, you and Aaron, who are able to go to war. NIV translated that serve in the army, right? And it's a related term, sabah, sabah. Li sibotam. It's just a plural with the preposition. So NIV uses two words. So does the parallel here. It uses to war, right? Whereas serve in the army, if NIV's translation were here, serve in the army, it would be a lot better, right? Because then you could see, without looking over at the Hebrew on the left, whether they're the same term, usually. NIV, NWT would be. But otherwise, I got to point this out to you, okay? So just like we saw, so in Exodus 12:41, we saw it was armies, plural, in the Hebrew. And here we get armies again, shall number them by their armies to serve in the army, right, per NIV. So the plural becomes a singular for the army. Do you all see that? This is very, very important, everybody. New information or new kind of emphasis on things that will add to the continuing destruction of false doctrine and the establishment of the truth of the Bible. Oh, we're doing so good doing that, everybody. I'm very proud of all of you. Keep it up. Do you see that? Okay. So just remember, these are the same terms in different forms and usage, but both referring to the same thing. That is the division of the Israelites by their armies to serve in the army, to war as one. Okay? And that's why NIV says to serve in the army. So this should really be army, right? It's a noun. It is the same term used here. So both the NIV and the Bible Hub parallel really kind of, they don't do as good a job as NWT. That's a fact. Should be the same terms, the same context, and there's no real reason to change it. It's strange. Let's see what else it says under this term here. To war, right? Out to war. So there's not a lot of armies here, no army. All right. Let's see if this gives us any more. Okay. So it's very important that you remember, dividing them by their armies to war, right? To be in the army, the singular. The plural becomes the singular as they're divided up in order to serve as members of the one Israelite army. Okay. And in Numbers chapter 2, you can see this in explicit detail. Look. I mean, the whole chapter 2 is about what I just said. Ya'ol, speaking as the angel, which Sam doesn't understand, tells Moses all these things, talks about the divisions, right? The armies of the camp. And then it goes into great detail about how they're to be divided up. The whole chapter, the whole second chapter is the Israelites being divided up according to their divisions or armies to serve in the army or to war as one nation of people. So, for example, I don't think the NIV did a very good job of translating that. And so if we look at other texts of Numbers 1:3, look at how much clearer it is, I'll bet. All right, some of these, like, look at the Living. This is Sam's Bible. He likes to use it for his perverted purposes. We saw that, right? And then he doesn't use it when it's Sam. Who are able to go to war, you and Aaron must register the troops, right? So go to war, register the troops. That's the same term. Just you have a singular and a plural. English Standard, go to war, list them company by company. Berean Study Bible, by their divisions in Israel's army. That's not so bad. Right? Because you get the plural and the singular very clearly stated, but still two different words. The Net Bible, who can serve in the army by their divisions. Okay? There's no reason that can't be armies. Although, you know, sometimes the benefit of NWT is that you do get a better understanding of it's the same word, even if a different form. But I can understand why other Bibles, like Net Bible, would they don't want to maybe confuse people. Sometimes the same word can make you think it's the same thing, and when it's not, right? Obviously, the divisions, armies, plural, make up the one army. But the divisions individually are not the whole army. So there's some reason why you might not keep the same term, but I think for our purposes, it's important because regardless of what these English translations show, it's the same term, okay? I'm just doing this to show you why. The whole reason I'm doing this is for Joshua 5, to show you why the plural for armies turns into a singular, like we saw in Numbers chapter 3. And here in this is verse 3 right here. 1 verse 3 is what I mean. Same term is used. They're listed by divisions to serve in the army. There's that Bible. Let's look down here real quick. War and hosts. American King James. Go forth to war in Israel by their armies. So this is what I'm talking about. It's the same term, but by their armies, they go to war as the army. Young's literal actually is the best because it uses the same term. Everyone going out to the host. See, the army in Israel. Ye do number them by their hosts, plural, just like we saw in the parallel reading. It's the same term, singular and plural. Young's literal and the NWT are the only ones I saw that very clearly use the same word, first in the singular, then in the plural. And that is exactly what the Hebrew says. So that's very important. They're going out to the host in Israel after they're numbered by their hosts. In other words, they're going out to the army in Israel, like NWT says, after being numbered according to their armies, divisions. So here's where the change occurs. They become the army of Ja'ul, not the armies. There's still the armies, right, that make up the army. So there's no problem with referring to both as the same, plural or singular. But I need you to understand that, okay? Because we know pervert Sam and all the dragon theology believers are going to perv. They already have. We're blowing them out, we know. But you got to stay on top of all their new pervs because they'll use that to smokescreen over all their other failures, right? That's what they like to do. So you can insulate yourself against that by just defeating every time they stick their head up and it's something you feel like you can do and you're not wasting your time, right off, right? Spiritually. So you can see right here, they're numbered according to their armies to go out to the army in Israel. Now, last verse, while all this is being brought up, okay? Joshua 5:14. So we've established very clearly from Exodus 12:41, the armies that came out of Egypt, the Israelites, and using Numbers 1 through 3, and all of chapter 2, and part of chapter 3, to show those armies that came out of Egypt in Exodus 12:41 were numbered according to those armies to serve in the army, singular, of Israel. Guess who's the prince of that army? Guess who's the prince of the Israelites? Guess who's the prince of Israel? Joshua 5:14. Now, pervert Sam and the other heretics failed to respond to my use of this text in other videos and in my writings, but they like to focus on the fact that this angel receives proskuneo, worship, all the way to the ground. But we saw that in my 10+ hour destruction video. Also the case in 1 Chronicles 21 that David gets exactly the same thing. Proskuneo with their faces on the ground. That happens a lot to other people as well, and not just to the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament. Sam's a pervert. But because he believes the angel of the Lord is a person of the Trinity in Jesus, and he doesn't want this to be Michael, he perverts the parts that prove he is Michael, or at least not uncreated. Well, it proves it's Michael, I believe. He pervs it and just focuses on the so-called worship stuff that he then fails to properly interpret in light of other accounts that do the same thing. In fact, David even got more worship in 1 Chronicles 21 than the angel of Johsua standing between heaven and earth. And Sam focused on that instead of what was given more to David. He's a perv. Right here, Joshua 5, verse 14. Look, I've shown you conclusively the development of the armies of the Israelites out of Egypt being divided by their divisions, their armies, into the army, singular, of Israel. I'd like you to meet the leader of that army. Joshua 5:14. Well, let's read verse 13. Now, when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" "Neither," this person replied, "but as the commander of the army of YHWH, I have come." Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" Now, if you'll go over in the right, it's got Sweet Septuagint. It doesn't even use proskuneo here, right? It just says he fell upon his face upon the earth. So Sam likes to highlight this stuff. Now, of course, I'm looking at Sweets. Might be a different reading, so I don't want to speak like for conclusively. But what I'm looking at shows me this isn't even the same level as what David got in 1 Chronicles 21. So, what is this, though? This being here, right? We all agree this is the angel of the Lord. Sam just believes it's an uncreated person of the Trinity, like all the other angel-worshiping heretics. We believe it's Michael the Archangel, Jesus, or not just another angel, right? Let's look at the Hebrew. All right, so we saw conclusively how the Israelites as a people came from the armies out of Egypt and were divided according to those armies into the army of Israel. This is the verse we just read in Joshua 5:14. So he said, "No, but I, commander, prince, Sar." That's the exact same term used of Michael the Archangel in Daniel 10 and Daniel 12. I'm going to show that to you. And of Jesus in Isaiah 9. It's a prince, you perverts. I, prince of the army of YHWH. Look at that. There's that word again. It's the same word. Same word of the Israelites in Exodus 12:41. Same word used in Numbers, plural and singular, in those counts. This is the commander of the Israelites. This is the prince of the Israelites. This isn't talking about him as the prince of the hosts of heaven, you pervert. And while I probably applied it in that way before because I never thought I'd have to deal with pervs like this and have to microanalyze just what kind of army the being is the captain of. I figured it could be whatever army is Johshua's army, human or spirit. Wasn't a significant part because it was more the question of figure being here present during the same time that Michael is, according to Jude. There's only one angel given the authority to do that. Exodus 23. They're perverts. So right here, though, we can see very clearly this is a prince, or the prince. It doesn't use the article, but it's a prince of the army of Yahweh. It doesn't have to have the article to have a specific reference either, but it makes it more clear. Either way, who's the prince of Israel according to the Bible? That's Michael, you pervert. It says right here, he's the prince of the army of Israelites. It uses the singular term, just like we saw in Numbers chapter 1, verse 3, that the Israelites as families, armies out of Egypt were consolidated into. This is the angel who was given authority over that army. And that's what he's telling you right here. That's the angel saying, I'm the prince of this army. I'm the prince of these people. I'm Michael, you pervert. So stop blaspheming me and my people and my God, or down you go. Spiritually, like before. So everybody, these pervs are so gone, right? They're just running from the text, right? We saw that with Sam and the Mary thing and all that other stuff. But it's so fascinating to me how these perverts can pretend to research and they miss everything. They can't figure out anything. They're just reading their doctrine into everything and trying to make sure that we can't defeat them, which we do every time. And so they're paranoid. They're perverting. They're panicking. Many of them. Sam, gone. So right here, everybody, look. This being is the prince of the army of Israelites. That's who that army is. That's the army that was just in great detail in Numbers 2, from Numbers 1 to 2 and even in 3. Same events and people and events, just a different book. Being formed. So there's no other army even under consideration in this context. He's literally leading them into this land to fight with the other armies. That's his army right here. The army we just read about being in detailed formed from the armies of people that came out of Egypt. Okay, well, if the Hebrew here explicitly says, I am prince of the army. He's prince of the army, Sam. Okay, we're going to do something right here. Then we're going to wrap it up. I was going to see if I could do a little snippet here, and we'll just make a comparison. We don't need to. You can see real clearly, right? Prince, Sar. That's the Hebrew word for prince. I, prince of the army. Seba. Same word we read from the other accounts. Exodus 12, Numbers 1. This being, this angel of the Lord, that we all agree is an angel of the Lord, we just disagree on what that means and what the significance is prince of the Israelite army. There's no question about it. We saw that given to him in Exodus 23. We're going to talk more about that in the upcoming episodes, but we've talked about it in detail. Talked about it in detail in my 10+ hour destruction of Sam and other videos. So look now at Daniel 10, 21. This is Gabriel talking. I'll tell you what is noted in the scripture of truth, and no one. Does no one mean no one, you perverts? Only if it agrees with your doctrine, I guess. And no one upholds me against these except Michael, your prince. Not the pagan prince that you perverts promote. It's the same word. It's related to the same form of the Hebrew word, Tsar, prince. Your prince, the prince of the army of Israelites. It's the same being, everybody. There's only one Prince of Israel. It's not only the one who's named explicitly right here, but also in Daniel chapter 12, and even more explicitly identifying terms that he would stand up at a special time, the Prince, Hasar, Hagadol, the great Prince. Your Prince, we just saw that in Daniel 10:21. This great Prince who's going to stand up at the end and who defeated Satan, right there, Sam, after the Christ got authority, doesn't say anything about the Christ telling Michael to fight on his behalf. Everything shows, according to Jude, that Michael would defer to the one who has the right to fight Satan. And that's exactly what he does after getting all that authority. No one can explain why that happens without adding words to the text. But since they do that so often, it's disappointing, right? But you got to understand what the text says, not what they say. They're perverts. It's very clear, everyone. Michael, the great Prince, your Prince of Israel, the Prince of the army of Israelites. It's the same being. That's why we have other indications where in Jude and in Zechariah, this same Prince of the Israelites, your Prince, the great Prince, does the same thing all angels do, you pervert. 2 Peter 2:11. When they're bringing a judgment from the Lord, they don't rebuke celestial beings like Satan. We already know that from Jude. You perved it. We showed you're a liar. Michael and the angel of the Lord are both princes of the army of Israel. They're prince. Only one angel was appointed in that way, according to Exodus 23, you pervert. Jude has that same angel, Michael, using the same words as that same angel, the angel of the Lord in Zechariah, showing they're not the one that they're asking to rebuke Satan. The main point you keep ignoring among four others, but that's primary, related to the verb itself. You just focus on the use of the same verb, not its significance, perv.